You're tuned in to Reimagine 2021, version 11, the #1 virtual crypto and blockchain conference. Coming up, our experts talk about specific projects that they love in the NFT space.
For our audience here that's tuning in, there's a wide range of NFT uses on the gaming side, but how do you buy and sell? And I think you guys have provided a solution, and now this Ruby Exchange is now providing like an AMM and allowing people to transfer assets. Is that right?
Yeah, and Ruby is doing something really interesting where there's an AMM that also has an NFT component. And so even within a decentralized finance infrastructure, a set of smart contracts that are an automated market maker where people are trading, guess what? The people who have certain NFTs actually get greater returns in liquidity pools and special advantages within this DeFi landscape. And so it actually lets people have elevated roles and privileges even within a marketplace environment.
That's great. So thank you for elaborating on that, because I think that's interesting. That's where these things are going, and I think that's the first type of NFT, or outside of a DeFi kind of copycat and forking. Like it's kind of a new way to reward its community.
And most NFT use cases have some sort of centralized comparison proxy, and in this case, it's people who spend more money, trade more, buy certain rights and privileges, actually get prioritized trading advantages and lower fees in centralized marketplaces. And in decentralized marketplaces, you don't have centralized middlemen controlling different parameters of who gets what. And so NFTs are also a great use case in a decentralized marketplace environment to take some things that we see working in the real world and apply them to a decentralized environment.
And talking about centralized institutions and players, Adobe kind of just released this certification credential so that any creator on their platform can now have the option to make it an NFT. Did you hear about this?
Just briefly, I read the headline.
It just came out. It just came out like this week while we're doing this. So what do you think about that? Kind of Adobe allowing content creators to incorporate their social data along with the creation itself of the content, and embed that into the metadata of an NFT and give them an option if they want to make an NFT or not.
When we're in these high growth area markets, I think the majority of people have a vision of how things are going to actually work, but the reality is they work always differently in some way, shape, or form. And my belief is that the adoption of blockchain by centralized entities is actually going to help propel us to the next level. It will not be, blockchains topple all these centralized parties. Businesses are going to see an opportunity to embrace crypto and embrace blockchain, and the ones that do will actually have advantages over their peers. There's a huge movement happening, and companies like Adobe creating functionality to support creators is absolutely amazing to see, and it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, for sure. And the physical world, does an NFT have to be, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, does it have to be digitally native? Does this have to be generated through the internet? Can you do an NFT on a building? What's your take on kind of, NFTing things, tokenizing something?
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing there is you start getting into this world of what's a security, what's not a security, and how do you have fractionalized ownership. So that goes back, that ball bounces back to the lawyers. Clearly, security tokens for a long time, non-fungible security tokens, were a huge market that just didn't take off. And I think it's going to be another area that will be massive, having fractionalized ownership of a home, fractionalized ownership of pieces of art, fractionalized ownership of a sports team. Okay, but again, those fractionalized ownerships of things that are not crypto or digitally native have greater requirements around securities laws, and actually, you need to comply with securities laws. And when the lawyers figure that out, which I know a lot of people were working on that in the past, it was a hot thing in 2018, and I could see that resurfacing again. That'll be a theme probably in 2022.
I've never really heard that aspect in terms of just the structure of an NFT on that form. Not that it can't be done. I remember everybody was talking about tokenizing the B of A building, or you could own this, that, and the other, and it made sense. There also needs to be demand, like somebody, people, is there a market for that wants to own it enough to create that? And then also on the legal side, that's some good input. And you talk about fractionalization. Some people think of NFTs as, CryptoPunks, super, increase in value. Not everybody can maybe buy one now. And you're talking about communities a little bit. How do you see fractionalization and versus maybe buying the floor, and maybe pros and cons to those to buy some of this art?
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is, I think if I hear you correctly, it's how inclusive is crypto and NFTs, and I think NFTs are a broadly misunderstood animal, and it's kind of the old thing of like there's an elephant and there's 5 people with their eyes closed, and one has a tail, one has a trunk, and they have to guess what it is, and no one can figure out. You need to actually see the whole package to know what it does, and NFTs provide value across the whole spectrum, and actually provide far greater inclusiveness than exclusiveness. Buying a CryptoPunk or an ape right now is not accessible for most people or for hardly anybody.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of other huge values that NFTs provide to people across the whole socioeconomic spectrum.
Maybe can you speak a little bit more about what you did with Damien and Hirst?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really fun project. So we now have an NFT capability with our recent acquisition of Trium. Even prior to that, we worked with Damien Hirst, an artist, to think of a collection of artwork that was available either in digital format or physical. And so we worked to enable the creation of the digital product, and what was available was an NFT that was linked to the ownership of either the physical good or the digital twin, if you will. This is a really interesting experiment to see if people care for content in physical or digital format. And we continue to be creating tools that work with content creators and copyright owners, franchises, sports franchises, to think about how they think of content creation in the digital goods economy.
Where does ConsenSys lie in your kind of role with growing the NFT ecosystem?
Yeah, so we've just announced our acquisition of Trium, which was a part of the ConsenSys mesh ecosystem, but is now a part of ConsenSys Software Inc. With Trium, we now have the ability to enable different companies that are thinking about their NFT strategy in the creation, issuance, and marketplace adoption of digital goods, be it in a platform as a service model or in a SaaS-based model.
What are some interesting projects or use cases that you see that are actually bringing NFTs to impact the real world?
Yeah, so I would say a really great project that's doing a bunch of different things. It's community-centric. It started as a social token. It's called Friends with Benefits. And I joined that community about 1.5 years ago now. And that was like my first jumping into the new NFT crypto space, like this kind of bull run, after hearing Trevor on like a podcast. And what that community's provided is, at first it was just token gated access, but then it kind of evolved into like a creator like think tank, and they had like different sorts of value, and like NFTs hadn't taken off really just yet. So like the access was the token, but as time has gone on, they've been issuing NFTs. The people within it have been creating NFTs. There's been a lot of talk around NFTs. And some of the cool things that they're doing now, especially at, this week at like Lisbon, Paris a couple months ago for ECC, is they've developed within the community and like self-funded ticketing systems, where basically if you own a certain NFT, if you own a certain amount of tokens, it actually gives you a scannable QR code that lets you into these events. A lot of the other events I went to actually just kind of had you plug in your wallet, sign a message, and then you're kind of good to go. But these actually checked, supposedly, whether the asset was still in your wallet at the time you're scanning in. So that's like one example. I guess like real world to digital kind of bridges of physical goods. Zen.io is doing some interesting stuff. They've been doing it for a while with mostly fine artists like Hajime Sorayama, Daniel Arsham, but they embed like RFID tags into sculptures and physical works that are like linked up on the blockchain. Other really interesting ones I would say would be VerisArt for years has been authenticating with digital certificates real world artworks. So like I think they've been working with like Shepard Fairey, Obey Giant for like the last couple of years. All of it's actually on the Bitcoin blockchain. But like authenticity isn't actually something that's like new to the art and the blockchain space. It's actually been around for like a couple of years already, since like 2017, even 2016 in some cases. But I think like the interesting things are like stuff they're doing, like 4Art technologies are allowing you to like create digital fingerprints of physical works down to like hairs that are on the works, down to brush strokes. So you can actually log a digital fingerprint of a work and actually publish that to the blockchain. So yeah, just some of the things.
How critical is it for EY to take the institutional side and really collaborate with your polygons? I think you guys, we're supporting a Chainlink hackathon, right? Really working with the decentralized world. How important is it for EY to kind of engage that more? Is that a critical? I mean, you're playing a critical role, critical player in this whole industry. So how do you guys see you crossing, those boundaries to say, hey, we're a big institution. At the same time, we're willing to support these other players that are creating the innovation.
So you bring up what is a super challenging thing for us, right? We are a large organization and we are a regulated organization and we have a lot of rules to comply with. And so I think many people inside of EY almost take it for granted that we can't do amazing stuff for technology companies because we'll never be nimble enough. And so for me to be selected by startups, to be chosen as a key strategic partner for people like Polygon and other really amazing entities is awesome. To be asked by Microsoft to help build software for them is a huge compliment, right? So these are really positive things. We are really, really good and are very effective at serving large enterprises. And one of my missions has been to use our credibility as one of the world's top audit firms to help people understand and feel comfortable that yes, you can do business on the blockchain. You can transact in crypto. You're not going to go to jail, right? We can audit you, right? Your CFO should not be afraid. So that part, we have a lot to contribute. But I also want to make sure that we have something really good to say to the startups of this world, to the technology companies. And I really believe if we're very focused, we can have a big impact. And a good example of that is the work we're doing in privacy technologies around zero-knowledge proofs. I would argue that we are among the best, if not possibly the best, in the very specific area that we've chosen to focus on in the world of privacy.
And I don't know if you read it, but Adobe has this like NFT option now on their software. Certification credentials. Not only that, it's tying in the creator's social, digital identity, their social media stuff, and embedding that into the metadata. So, what do you think about Adobe kind of allowing this feature, to kind of allow this NFT space to maybe blossom a little more?
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that, but that's really cool. I mean, it's kind of like the watermarking, where you kind of create this art and Adobe, so many creators use Adobe. I'm sure the shoot today is going to be edited in some Adobe software. So actually, it's a great place for creators to be able to kind of stamp their artwork as a collectible, right? So that makes a ton of sense. Whatever product person worked on that at Adobe definitely knows their market.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it definitely has. That's a good sign, And then I think a lot of enterprises now are doing NFTs and very engaging with fans and their customers and consumers. And I think it's just kind of the evolution of, like you mentioned, the cards and things that we collect or that we're involved in. And it's not always speculation on the value, right? It's more of access passes or insights and giveaways and being able to stay close to, you know, the things that they love the most, celebrities, right, and all that. So I think we'll kind of see what happens as this plays out.
Definitely.
Why do you think that DeFi was a big boom, TVL was pretty large, NFTs come in, and now, you know, those assets are being moved over, and NFTs are more mainstream a little bit than DeFi is? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think DeFi is very, I use this term because I'm, you know, one of them, but very geeky, right? It's a deconstruction of finance, and it, you know, it's hard to access. You know, it's not very accessible for like everyday users, right? But NFTs, when you have you know, celebrities that are promoting their NFTs, and people can grok an NFT, I think, more, even though they may not know how all the innards work and like how the hashing and everything works, but you know, they can understand that, oh, this is like a digital collectible, and when I own this, it's only, you know, this is the only one that exists. So I think it's just a lot more accessible for the everyday users, right? I still think that DeFi has kind of paved the way, you know, for that around, you know, decentralization and what you know, how a market can evolve around a decentralized technology. But NFTs, like I said, were kind of just like tip of the spear of what could happen. It happened a little bit out of order. I think the initial like CryptoKitties kind of experiment, you know, I think showed that some scalability issues with Ethereum. So the underlying technology wasn't quite ready for something like an NFT. So that team went out and created, you know, Flow blockchain for that cause. So maybe the infrastructure just wasn't there yet, you know. So DeFi kind of blended itself, you know, better to what the infrastructure was available, right?
So can you develop NFTs with Stellar? Is Stellar a protocol or blockchain that people can implement or mint?
Well, yeah, so on Stellar, asset issuance is a first-class thing. Mostly it's designed for fungible assets, but you can create an asset and issue only one of them, and that would be an NFT. I don't know, you know, we haven't done a lot to support that, but I think it would, I don't see why it wouldn't work theoretically. I guess you'd have to you have to trust the issuer not to issue more of them, but you can always lock an account by removing all the signing weights. So the account exists, but there's no public keys that can sign for it.
You know, Rarible itself, what are some of the problems that you all are trying to solve in the industry?
Definitely bringing like mainstream audience to NFT world. So it's like a set of technical issues. So still it's really hard to do anything in crypto, like purchase anything without having a crypto actually. But also like buying crypto is hard. So you have to do all these KYCs, like, I don't know, small limits, all these limitations. Yeah, but hopefully it will be fixed soon. There is like a Coinbase that the guys are like announced this NFT strategy, so maybe they will bring more tooling around like buying crypto for NFT specifically, or just in general. So yeah, we're working on just to make all this process as easy as it can be. Just look like any other Web2 website, so people are familiar what to do. But behind this, it should be like a blockchain. So yeah, this is what we're working on. So connecting other blockchains that are getting pretty good traction with lots of new NFTs minted there. So yeah, just working on building this one like interface to all NFT world.
What is it that allows you to spot some of these, you know, opportunities? You don't know what's going to happen, but you've been a part of a lot of these tech innovations over time.
Yeah, believe it or not, I've done a whole lot of tech startups, and my very first one was actually an internet company back in 1994. Long before it was fashionable to do internet, long before it was fashionable to do as an undergrad. I happened to be at school at MIT, and we had this amazing access to the internet all over campus. And it seemed pretty obvious to me that the world was going to get rebooted around this technology. And then I realized it wasn't obvious to everybody else. It took a long time for that to become obvious. Once I started to tune into crypto and fall down the rabbit hole, I really realized that this is all happening again. It's like Web 1.0, the Redux, but probably bigger and more fundamental. And so, I think it's this notion that, understanding how the fabric of society works and understanding new technologies and how they interface and potentially can change that. And then of course, just having the risk taking, to say, I'm gonna jump in early, who knows where this is gonna go, who knows how long it's gonna happen, but it's super fun to be building in the early stages of this stuff, that's for sure.
The inclusivity of NFTs, you're talking about culture, people having a piece of ownership. You brought up collectibles and art. Which has been popular, and that's kind of the values have been rising. How do you see fractional ownership? And are you an NFT owner?
I am an NFT owner.
So that's great. So you can kind of you understand the lay of the land here as an owner, which is different as a builder, as a project and all that adds a little sentiment there. But how do you view like fractional ownership with maybe peer out, like buying it outright?
Some of the NFTs that are out there today have a very high, floor to get in at, which is beyond the means of many, many folks. In fact, many except the largest. And so the ability to participate and have a fractional share of a CryptoPunk is pretty awesome compared to look, it may take me a long, long time before I could ever own a full CryptoPunk. And I just think that this is part of the ethos of crypto and blockchain is, encourage participation, democratize access, break down barriers. And so, why should CryptoPunks, most expensive NFT, that's out there, be the range of just the elites, right? Shouldn't everyone be able to participate in that ecosystem? And so I think it's super constructive, and I think we're just beginning to see all the possibilities of fractional ownership of NFTs.